Take a moment and look around you. Notice the room you're sitting in, the sounds around you, the colors, the light. It feels like you're seeing reality exactly as it is. But what if I told you? You're not. Right now, your brain is making millions of decisions without asking your permission. It's choosing what you should notice, what you should ignore, what deserves your attention, and what should disappear into the background. The unsettling truth is that you've never experienced the world exactly as it is. You've only experienced the version your brain allows you to see. Welcome to Mind Decoded. Today, we're exploring one of the most fascinating discoveries in psychology. What if your brain has been quietly editing reality your entire life? Imagine buying a red car. Before you bought it, you hardly noticed red cars on the road. But suddenly, they are everywhere. Every traffic light, every parking lot, every highway. It almost feels as though the entire world decided to buy the exact same car overnight. But that's impossible. The cars were always there. Your brain simply decided they were important. Here's another example. A pregnant woman suddenly notices pregnant women everywhere. Someone who starts learning guitar begins hearing guitar in songs they never paid attention to before. A person thinking about starting a business suddenly sees opportunities everywhere. Did the world change? No. Their attention did. This happens because your brain receives an overwhelming amount of information every second. Every sound, every face, every smell, every movement. If your brain tried to process all of it consciously, you'd become overwhelmed almost instantly. So it performs one of the most incredible acts of efficiency imaginable. It filters reality. Think of your brain as the world's most powerful search engine. It constantly asks one question. What matters most right now? Everything else gets pushed into the background. Without this filtering system, even walking through a busy street would feel impossible. You'd notice every conversation, every bird, every leaf moving in the wind, every reflection in every window, every footstep, every blinking light. Your mind would drown in information. Instead, it quietly removes most of it, not because it isn't real, but because it isn't immediately useful. This is one reason two people can walk through the exact same place and remember completely different things. One notices the architecture, another notices the people, another notices the music playing in a nearby cafe, another notices the stray dog sleeping under a tree. They all experienced the same environment, yet each remembers a different reality. Why? Because attention isn't just about seeing, it's about selecting. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever been so focused on finding your phone, only to realize it was in your hand the entire time? Or searched frantically for your glasses, while they were resting on your head? How could you possibly miss something so obvious? Because your brain wasn't looking for what was already there. It was following a different expectation. Reality hadn't changed. Your perception had. This brings us to one of the most remarkable systems inside the human brain. A network that quietly decides what enters your awareness and what stays hidden. Some psychologists refer to its role as helping regulate attention and prioritize information, though it's only one part of a much larger system that shapes what we notice. It works every second of your life, without applause, without recognition, without you even realizing it exists. And yet, it influences your decisions, your memories, your emotions, even the future you believe is possible. In the next part, we'll uncover how this hidden filter doesn't just decide what you see, it also shapes what you believe. And sometimes, the greatest prison isn't the world around you. It's the invisible story your own mind keeps telling you. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded city. Thousands of people are walking past you. Cars are moving in every direction. Conversations blend into one endless stream of noise. Advertisements flash across giant screens. Your phone vibrates. A child laughs. A dog barks somewhere in the distance. Yet somehow, none of it feels overwhelming. Your brain has already decided what deserves your attention. Everything else fades into the background. But here's the frightening part. You don't control this process as much as you think you do. Deep inside your brain is a network involved in filtering information and helping direct your attention. Rather than processing every detail equally, your brain prioritizes what seems most relevant based on your goals, memories, emotions, and expectations. Think of it as a personal assistant asking one question every second. Out of everything happening right now, what matters most? And once that decision is made, your experience of reality changes. Imagine you've decided that nobody respects you. Without realizing it, your mind starts searching for evidence. A coworker walks past without saying hello. See? They ignored me. A friend takes longer than usual to reply to your message. They must not care. Someone disagrees with your opinion. They don't value me. But what about the people who smiled at you? The friend who checked in yesterday? The compliment you received last week? Your brain may pay less attention to those moments because they don't fit the story it's expecting. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. We naturally notice and remember information that supports what we already believe, while overlooking information that challenges it. This tendency helps explain why two people can live through the same event and come away with completely different conclusions. Imagine two employees starting a new job on the same day. The first believes, "This is a great opportunity." The second believes, "I'm probably going to fail." Over the next few weeks, both make mistakes. Both receive praise. Both face challenges. Yet each person's brain highlights different moments. One remembers encouragement. The other remembers criticism. One sees opportunity. The other sees proof of failure. The workplace hasn't changed. Their mental filter has. Now think about social media. Have you noticed that after watching a few videos on one topic, your feed suddenly seems full of similar content? That's because recommendation systems learn from your interests. Your brain works in a somewhat similar way. The more attention you give to certain thoughts, the more easily related thoughts come to mind. If you constantly focus on danger, your mind becomes better at finding danger. If you constantly look for rejection, rejection becomes easier to notice. If you spend your days looking for reasons to be grateful, your attention becomes more sensitive to moments worth appreciating. This doesn't mean problems disappear. It means your perception becomes more balanced. Here's something remarkable. The stories you repeat to yourself can influence how you experience the world. Tell yourself often enough that you're incapable, and you may stop noticing opportunities to grow. Tell yourself you're always unlucky, and every setback begins to feel like further proof. That's one reason psychologists often encourage people to examine their automatic thoughts rather than accepting every thought as fact. Not every thought deserves to be believed. Not every fear predicts the future. Not every assumption reflects reality. Your brain is an extraordinary organ, but it isn't a perfect narrator. Sometimes, it confuses possibility with certainty. Sometimes, it mistakes old experiences for present reality. And sometimes, it protects you so aggressively that it also limits you. In the next part, we'll explore one of the most astonishing demonstrations of this idea: how your expectations can subtly influence your actions, your relationships, and even the outcomes you experience. Because the stories inside your mind don't just shape what you notice, they can also shape what you do. Imagine two students preparing for the same exam. Both studied the same material. Both attended the same classes. Both have the same amount of time to prepare. Yet one walks into the examination room thinking, "I've worked hard. I can do this." The other whispers to themselves, "I'm going to fail." Hours later, the first student performs with confidence. The second forgets answers they knew only the night before. What happened? Was one person simply smarter? Not necessarily. Sometimes, what we expect influences how we behave. Psychologists call this a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we strongly expect something to happen, our actions can unintentionally help bring about that outcome. Imagine believing that nobody likes you. Without realizing it, you become quieter. You avoid conversations. You hesitate to smile first. You keep your distance. People begin responding to your silence with distance of their own. Suddenly, it feels as though your belief has been confirmed. See, nobody likes me. But was that the whole story? Or did your expectation quietly influence your behavior? Now imagine the opposite. Someone believes people are generally kind. They smile first. They introduce themselves. They ask questions. They show genuine interest. Most people respond warmly. Again, their expectation seems to come true. This doesn't mean positive thinking magically changes reality. Life still contains setbacks, unfairness, and disappointment. But our expectations can influence the choices we make, the risks we are willing to take, and the way we interpret other people's reactions. Here's another example. Have you ever learned a new word, and then suddenly started hearing it everywhere? It feels almost supernatural, as if the universe suddenly decided everyone should start saying that exact word. But the word was always there. Your attention simply became tuned to it. Your brain had updated its filter. The same thing happens with opportunities. One person walks through a city and sees only traffic, noise, and stress. Another sees businesses, ideas, and possibilities. A photographer notices light. An architect notices buildings. A musician notices rhythm. A psychologist notices behavior. The world hasn't changed. Only the lens through which it's being observed. This is why two people can live in the same neighborhood, work the same job, experience the same challenges, yet describe completely different lives. One says, "Everything is against me." The other says, "Every challenge is teaching me something." Neither person is seeing the complete picture. They're seeing the parts their minds are emphasizing. But perhaps the greatest illusion your brain creates is the story about who you are. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, "I'm not confident. I'm just unlucky. I'm not creative. I'm bad with people. This is just who I am." The more often you repeat those stories, the more familiar they become. Eventually, they stop feeling like opinions. They start feeling like facts. But psychology tells us something important. Our identities are not fixed in the way we often imagine. People grow. They learn. They recover. They change. The person you were 5 years ago isn't the person reading these words today. And the person you are today doesn't have to be the person you become tomorrow. Your brain loves certainty. It prefers familiar stories, even limiting ones, because they're predictable. Change requires uncertainty. And uncertainty makes the brain uncomfortable. That's why personal growth often feels difficult. Not because you're incapable, but because your mind is trying to protect what feels familiar. In our final chapter, we'll answer the most important question of all. If your brain filters reality, if your expectations influence your behavior, if your thoughts shape the stories you live by, can you retrain your mind to see the world differently? Because the most powerful prison isn't made of walls. It's made of beliefs you never thought to question. If you followed this journey from the beginning, you now know something remarkable. Your brain is not a camera. It doesn't simply record reality. It interprets it. It filters it. It gives meaning to it. And sometimes, it gets it wrong. But here's the good news. The very thing that makes the brain capable of trapping you also makes it capable of setting you free. For decades, neuroscientists have discovered that the brain isn't as fixed as people once believed. It constantly changes throughout life by forming and strengthening neural connections as we learn, practice, and adapt. This ability is known as neuroplasticity. In simple terms, your brain is always learning. Every habit you repeat, every thought you return to, every skill you practice, strengthens certain pathways while others become weaker from lack of use. Think of it like walking through a forest. The first time you walk a path, it's difficult. Branches block your way. The ground is uneven. But after walking the same route every day, the path becomes clear and easy to follow. Your thoughts work in much the same way. The more often you think, "I'm not good enough," the easier that thought becomes. The more often you think, "I'll never succeed," the more familiar that path feels. Eventually, your brain begins taking that route automatically, not because it's true, but because it's well traveled. Now imagine creating a different path. Instead of accepting every negative thought as reality, you become curious. You ask, "Is this thought actually true? What evidence do I have? Could there be another explanation?" This doesn't mean pretending life is perfect. It means refusing to let one thought become your entire identity. Consider someone who fails a job interview. One person says, "I'm a failure." Another says, "I wasn't successful this time. What can I learn before the next interview?" The event is the same. The meaning is different. And that difference shapes what happens next. One gives up. The other grows. This is why psychologists often encourage people to challenge automatic thoughts instead of accepting them without question. Not every thought deserves your trust. Some are echoes of old fears. Some come from painful experiences. Some are simply your brain trying to protect you from uncertainty. Protection can be helpful. But when fear becomes your permanent guide, it quietly begins deciding what kind of life you believe is possible. So how do you begin changing your mental filter? Start by paying attention to your attention. Notice what your mind searches for every day. Do you constantly look for problems or possibilities? Do you notice every criticism while ignoring every compliment? Do you remember every failure but forget your progress? Awareness is the first step, because you cannot change a pattern you never notice. The next step is simple. Ask better questions. Instead of, why does everything go wrong? Ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of, why am I like this? Ask, who am I becoming? Small questions can lead to powerful shifts in perspective. And over time, those shifts influence your choices, your relationships, your confidence, even the opportunities you're willing to pursue. So, is your brain lying to you? Not exactly. It's doing what it evolved to do. It simplifies, predicts, protects, filters. But sometimes, the stories it creates need to be questioned, because the world is often bigger than your fears, kinder than your assumptions, and full of possibilities your mind hasn't learned to notice yet. The greatest breakthrough doesn't happen the moment reality changes. It happens the moment you realize that you don't have to believe every story your mind tells you. Thank you for joining me on Mind Decoded. If this video challenged the way you think, subscribe and become part of a community that's passionate about understanding the human mind through psychology, science, and thoughtful discussion. Because every thought has a pattern, every behavior has a reason, and every mind can be decoded. Until next time, stay curious,